Hi, everybody. Oh, got my microphone on. It's plugged in. Awesome. Let me just get all set up for you. I've got resources today. Getting a note. I've got low network connection, but it looks like we're okay. And my computer fan is going like crazy, which is annoying me. So, about 1 in 4 women will experience postpartum depression, and about 10% of women experience postpartum anxiety. And they're different things, but very similar. So postpartum depression is a lot like depression in general. It just happens postpartum. And the solution is really about focusing on infant and mama care. And postpartum anxiety is more like anxiety on steroids that's related to all things parenting and motherhood. So, when a new baby comes into the world, whether we're prepared or not, there's a lot of things that are shifting for us that affect our mental health. And even if we don't hit an official depression diagnosis, like me, I didn't hit an official depression diagnosis, we can still experience some new challenges around mental resiliency. I have never been more aware of my mental ups and downs than I was in the first 6 months post-baby and even now. I've never been more aware of my brain gremlins. I've never been more aware of how I could flip on a dime from feeling okay to getting a flood of negative, overwhelming emotions and watching my entire brain script change. So learning how to take care of our mental health in this time is super important, regardless of where we are on that depression spectrum. The reasons that we experience this are many, many fold. Of course, everything has changed. We're not getting sleep. We might be experiencing body pain in different areas. We may have faced grand expectations about what motherhood was going to feel like and look like, and that might be different than our reality. We may not have a tribe or a community to support us, and all the hormones, right? Hormones have changed. And I've done videos before about hormones and how they're not to blame for our mental health. They're actually really great flags and indicators for how we're doing. They're actually like information for us. And you can check out my Let's Talk Sex Tuesday all about hormones if you head to my YouTube channel or to my Facebook page, right? So we're in the land of new baby. We've got a new body. We've got a new relationship. We have this new human we're trying to take care of. We may feel like we know what we're doing. We may not. And that's when postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression, or just mental health challenges in general, can hit. Postpartum anxiety looks like, and I just want to read this so that I get it right, is that unlike postpartum depression, which can cause mothers to experience extreme sadness or even disinterest in their newborn, postpartum anxiety symptoms manifest themselves mainly in the form of worry. So you constantly feel worried and on edge. And this shows up in particular as like a grand sense of uncertainty about what to do about anything. And you might experience sort of panic attacks when it comes to like taking the baby in the car, or worrying that they're going to get hurt if you stop holding them for a minute. Like all of these very exaggerated worries, and feeling like you're unable to move or act because of the anxiety that you're feeling. Postpartum depression is more this sadness, this disinterest, this disengagement with motherhood. And there can be varying degrees of all of these. One of the biggest challenges is that a lot of the symptoms are the same as just momhood symptoms. So like lack of sleep, not eating properly, like those happen to pretty much anybody when they're not having a baby, but they're also signs that maybe we're experiencing some depression challenges. So it's all kind of messed up in this big jumble, especially in the early days. The other thing that I want to note is that postpartum depression is not something, we think of it as something that happens like only in the early days, like typically within the first year. And I really want to note, like I've known people personally who have hit a very hard depression wall much later in their child's years, like 2 or 3, when maybe a massive sleep regression took hold. And so things were rolling along well. And then all of a sudden. They're not sleeping well, they're not eating well because they're not sleeping well. Maybe they've hit some career challenges or some motherhood challenges with a really testy toddler. And that's when those depression symptoms or those anxiety symptoms can hit again. So we don't have to think of this as something that exclusively happens to like brand new moms. It can happen at any time. Let's face it, motherhood, parenthood can be an overwhelming journey at times. And learning how to master and work with our mental health is really important. It's probably the biggest gift I think that motherhood has given me so far. So I just wanted to share a little bit about my experience and some of the things that I went through, and talk about some of the things that have helped me and that are recommended in general. If you're tapping on, say hello. If you're watching the replay, say hello. If you want to share any questions that you have about postpartum depression or anxiety, please do. If you want to share an experience that you've had, if that would feel helpful for you, if you feel like sharing your story would be helpful, then please do. So for me, like I said before, I didn't hit full-on depression diagnosis. I did get screened regularly when I went into the health center to check on my daughter's breastfeeding, and when we were doing vaccination visits, the nurses were very proactive about that, which is really great. But I definitely had some really tough times. My sacrum, my butt hurt for a very long time after baby. In fact, I still have challenges, and Mira's 15 months now. And my baby ate she breastfed like 45 minutes to an hour per breast at times. So I was stuck sitting for like an hour and a half out of every 3 hours with like a 30-minute break to basically deal with a crying, spitting up baby and then go back to sitting down. So breastfeeding was this whole situation. There was a lot of pillows involved. I also had a breast reduction when I was 19. So there was a lot of anxiety around whether or not I would be able to breastfeed. I had to massage a lot. Sorry, the sun's really bright. Breastfeeding was this very complicated thing for me for the first little while, and then it got much easier. Baby took a chunk of my nipple. That was extremely painful. I definitely had moments with sleep. My daughter wasn't sleeping well. My husband would come home and I would have a pile of books on one side of me and a pile of books on the other side of me. And I'd be crying and saying, these books say my baby's going to be a dictator if I don't put her on a schedule. And these books say, just go with the flow and let your baby do what it wants to do. What am I supposed to do? I've got 2 sets of books with totally opposing information. I am so lost. I definitely experienced pretty big mood swings. I definitely visioned, throwing my baby out the window and wanting to like move on from it all. I've definitely had those moments. I definitely had moments where things were totally fine and then she just cried for those 5 minutes longer and all of a sudden you're like, everything sucks. The world is horrible. You just get this flood of negative thoughts that come in. So I definitely experienced those things, right? I showered way less than I ever have in my life, like maybe once every 5 days instead of daily. Eating well is still a challenge for me. Sleeping well is still a challenge for me. And there were tough times really intermingled with the positive times. And I just want to note that I was experiencing this in a context where I had a supportive partner who was able to be fairly flexible with his work and home, enough. My parents both live where I live. His parents both live where I live, and we both have a big network of friends. So even in an environment of a lot of support, it was still a really challenging journey. So for my single mamas out there, for my mamas who are living far away from friends and family, for my mamas who are not living with a supportive partner, this is an even bigger challenge potentially, right? So there's lots to kind of grapple with in these times. So what are some of the things that I did? And if you're watching the replay, I'd love to hear some of the ways that you took care of your own mental health while you were in those early days, or even now when you've got an older kid. And probably the most important thing that I did for myself was I was aware of postpartum depression going into things. I was having an open dialogue with my doctor, with my midwife, with the nurses that I was regularly seeing at the health center. And I made myself this little cheat sheet that I put on my fridge. And it just kind of said, like, are you feeling down? Are you having a moment? Like, when was the last time you had a shower? Okay, been a while. Maybe you want to try to get one in. Not always easy, but can you do that? Can you call a friend? Can you call your mom? Can you just put the baby in the bassinet and have a shower for 10 minutes, right? When was the last time you ate? And when was the last time you ate something like healthy and good, not sugar and crap? Who can you call right now in this moment? And I actually listed names of people and their phone numbers that I didn't have to think about. So I listed, names of friends who work for themselves, who I know could come and see me in the middle of the day and not have to leave their work. Listed people who I know would come in the middle of the night, who told me that, right? I listed people who could make me food because they'd offered. So those were some things that I did to sort of prompt myself to do small pieces of care. Other things like have a little dance party or, watch a silly cat video. I mean, these are things that just can instantly flip my switch and make me laugh and feel happy. And that's sometimes what we need, right? It's not the full solution, but it can be part of the solution. So some other tips and information that I found when I was doing some research this morning, and I would say these are fairly aligned, right, is to get as close to 8 hours of sleep a day as you can. That might mean finding creative solutions with your partner. And if you're single, it might mean letting that one go for a little while, right? We can do some of these. We can't always do some of these. Eating as well as you can. And trying to reach out to your village to help you to do that. So can people make you easy snackable foods that come out of the freezer like muffins, and then they're just easy to grab and easy to eat, right? Practicing relaxation or mindfulness. So even just a 2-minute stop and take a deep breath. Singing to your baby can be a moment of mindfulness. Anything you can do to just relax and rest, right? And I mean, they always say rest when the baby rests, but really rest when the baby rests. Your mental health is more important than the mountain of laundry that's building up, and it's more important than all the dirty dishes in the sink. If you need to sleep, sleep. If you need to binge watch Downton Abbey, which I did, then binge watch Downton Abbey. Be gentle with yourself in your feelings. If journaling is helpful for you, do that. Let out the emotions. Acknowledge that this is hard. Acknowledge that you're having a hard time. Self-empathy, I could do a whole video on it, is one of the coolest mental health tools I've ever learned, which is just to sort of instead of sitting there with the judgment of being you should be better than this and you need to do all these things, sit with yourself as a caring friend would. And your friend would probably say to you, you're doing a great job. And yeah, this is really tough. And that's okay. And when you can say that to yourself and release the judgment, so much can be let go. Make sure, if you have to pay people, that you get time away from your baby. Dan and I instituted, I think we did at minimum 2 hours on Monday nights. I disappeared around bedtime. I just went for coffee at Starbucks because that's the only place I could go. And I just got 2 hours out of the house away. If it's better for you to do it in smaller increments, like 30 minutes a day, do 30 minutes a day. It was helpful for me to just go and have that time and be without baby and feel like me. I had a lot of moments where I was like, oh my God, all I ever talk about is poop and sleep. No one's going to care about me anymore. I'm so boring. Or who am I? I'm more than just boobs and a caregiver. I'm an interesting, thoughtful, considerate, dynamic person. Identity meltdowns are a thing when you've had a baby, right? So these are all things that you can do. And of course, educate yourself. So if you're feeling not yourself, if you're feeling lethargic, if you're feeling disengaged, apathetic, uninterested, if you're feeling very anxious and overwhelmed and stuck, Talk to the nurses at your healthcare facilities, talk to your doctors, talk to your partner and your friends, reach out to some crisis lines. I'll share some afterwards. Reach out anywhere you can get support, right? This is a normal experience, and there are ways that you can get help. Things that partners can do, because this is an important part of the conversation, right? Is to talk to your partner, give her opportunities to share how she's feeling and to be really honest about that. And instead of fixing and troubleshooting, just allow her to like vent and be like, okay, cool, and move on, right? Ask her what she needs. Remind her that it's not her fault, that she's not a bad mom, right? We're not bad moms. One of the biggest things can be the difference between the expectations we think about how motherhood's going to feel and look and be, and then the reality of what that looks like for us. I thought I was going to be a stay-at-home mom for 5 years. I thought I would just love playing with my kid, want to be home all the time. And I love playing with my kid, and after 3 days of doing it full time, I am going nuts. So working at least part-time has been very helpful to my identity, to my sense of self, to my sense of purpose in the world, and it helps me to be a better mom and to be more present for my daughter. Dads, other parents, the non-breastfeeding parent, also needs to take care of themselves and their mental health, right? Exercising as much as possible, accepting help from friends and family for both of you, really making sure that you're sharing the in-home responsibilities in the early days, especially. Mama should be just eating and sleeping and feeding baby and connecting with baby. And the less she has to do around the house, the better for herself, right? So that's kind of what I wanted to share today, right? PPD, PPA, postpartum depression and anxiety are very common. They're very normal. It's to be expected that we will hit some mental health bumps along the road, given everything that has changed for us. The more you can invest in your rest, in your diet, in moving every day, and in tools that work for you to calm you down, to get you present, to get you out of stress and anxiety, the more you can work through those challenges. And it's hard for everybody. In fact, we're almost talking so much about how hard it is that I've got friends who are like, please, can we talk a little bit about how wonderful it is to be a parent too, right? But this is a really serious issue. If you're needing help, if you're finding that some of this is speaking to you and where you're at today, then make sure, I'm speaking to a really broad audience. So depending on where you live and where you're at, is there a nursing clinic where you're going to weigh your baby or getting breastfeeding help or doing vaccinations? People there can generally help with depression screenings. Do you have a doctor you can see? They would have a depression screen and support that they can connect you with. Any of the baby groups or mom support groups you're in, like Mother Goose, anything like that, talk to the other moms, talk to the coordinator. They are very likely to have resources for you. Same thing with like family literacy centers or any sort of like community-based nonprofits that are around family supports. They would be able to support you too. And then I wanted to give you one phone number that you can reach out to. It's actually the crisis text line. And in America, in the States, in the US, you can text HOME to 741-741. And in Canada, you would text 686868. So that's the crisis text line. If you have no idea who else to get resources from, call them. In the US, text HOME to 741-741. In Canada, you text 686868, and they will hook you up with some resources. Last but not least, I found this really great page. It's from British Columbia, all about postpartum depression. It's got some really great information, some really great questions you can ask yourself if you're feeling like you're in this space, and some really great resources if you're needing help. And it is at www.heretoshelp.bc.ca/infosheet/postpartum depression. I will post the link in the comments, as well as the crisis text line number. That is my share for today. I hope there was something here for you. Please pass it on to any friends you feel may benefit. And if you have any questions, PM me anytime. I'm so here for you. Have a wonderful Tuesday afternoon, and I will see you next week. Bye.